All right, hello world and happy Wednesday. Welcome to Americana. I'm your host, Willie Montague. Tonight, we are most definitely getting ready to bring the curtains down. There's been some things we need to expose. We're getting ready to go from Washington, D.C. all the way to your kitchen table. You definitely don't want to go anywhere. It's going to be real, relevant, and most definitely relational. Stay tuned. This is Americana. All right, you guys, we are going to be talking about some hot topics today. Trump, $15 billion lawsuit, human trafficking programs, the funding is cut, and then AI regulation. Really, what is conservatives doing? But we're going to be joined with a special guest today, my good friend Darius Mayfield, who has no problem keeping it real. We got a lot coming up on today's episode. But before we get started, you already know what time it is. So do your little personal drum roll, and let's get into Willie's take. All right, you guys, this is the chance for you to listen to me rant. We say we love kids, but we hand them screens to raise them. We say mental health matters, but we laugh at suicide jokes online. We say life is sacred, but we cheer when our enemies die. We say we want peace, but war is good for ratings. We say we hate predators, but Hollywood most definitely sells them to us in prime time. We say we're moral, but we worship whatever keeps us entertained. So what is the problem with our moral character? Well, this is what we're going to talk about today. Once again, I am glad to welcome my good friend Darius Mayfield, a candidate for U.S. Congress from Virginia's 7th District. Welcome, Darius, to the show.
Thanks for having me. Really good to be here with you today.
Well, I'm excited for this. We're getting ready to get into it. We're going to talk about this $15 billion lawsuit that Trump is suing New York Times. Now, this is where I want to come. It's saying it is a radical left mouthpiece. But the question is, what is going on with this conservative now seeming like they're trying to squash out freedom of speech? Because the First Amendment gives us that, but then with this, it's radical left. Does it really matter if it's radical left, if it's good or bad? What do you say about this, and why is it being politicized? Should we just be focused on the main issues?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, everything's being politicized nowadays. This is more of accountability for fake news and holding corrupt institutions like the New York Times to task, to be honest with you, holding them accountable, especially when they go out and smear the president of the United States in an effort to mislead the American people. And that's all that's been happening for the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. We've all sat here and watched it. And it's kind of funny for, Democrats to even really say much about this when we just watched them weaponize an entire attorney general's department and literally tried to put the Republican nominee for president away for hundreds of years. And if anybody knows, one of the interesting things is when I hear a lot of things from the left, it's like they don't really pay attention to reality and what actually is. And the fact is that President Trump, this is nothing new to him. When he was a regular citizen, he was suing people that were defaming his character. We know this about President Trump. He's not acting out of character right now. He's actually very much in character. And he's finally going and trying to do something about it. He settled 3 or 4 different lawsuits over the last year where media outlets had to pay him tens of millions of dollars because of the slimy smearing they've been doing of this man ever since he announced his candidacy. So I think it's on par for who President Trump is.
But real fast, but is it really something that we can say is more about defamation, or is it because he has the power and the ability to, that he is in many ways, even if it is something that we say is defamation? I saw something, I believe it was Senator Ted Cruz, that began to mention about no matter how it comes, if we like it or don't, people do have the right to freedom of speech. And then now we're seeing, so what would be the difference when we saw after the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk, we start seeing, it seemed like the right was now picking up where the left off and continue to like, oh, we need to let people lose their jobs. They shouldn't say this. And now all of a sudden it's hate speech. So, where is it that we're now crossing the line? Because I feel like, it's freedom of speech as long as it is something that is appeasing to what we want to hear, and then it's not freedom of speech when it's something we don't want to hear.
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying, and I tend to agree in some sorts. But we have to remember that freedom of speech is not without consequence. And I said this back when Colin Kaepernick, took a knee in the NFL. I always agreed with his right and his ability to do that. He is a man. He is a free American man, and he has every right to do that. But I also agreed with the owners, and specifically the owner of that team, to bring down whatever discipline he felt necessary if he was losing support because of that, if he was losing money. These are businesses. In President Trump's case, when you have a organization like the New York Times using phrases like rape, when that's not true, that's not what he was actually convicted of. It was sexual assault, not rape. That's a detriment to one's character. That could be a huge detriment to one's business empire and what they're doing. So it's very important that we are cautious with our words. And yes, we do have freedom of speech, but that does not come without consequence. If you're running around in the street calling people names, let's take, for instance, a white person calling a black person the N-word, somebody might react in a way, and that's a consequence of you deciding to espouse your free speech in the wrong way. So, I absolutely do believe in free speech, and I'm an absolutist free speech, but at the end of the day, there are consequences for everything we do.
And true. So will the consequence be that when Democrats, if at any time, which will probably might be midterms, we might see a swing, to the left, is it going to be okay for them to come after Fox News and Newsmax? What would then be our reasoning at that point if they use that same power to come against conservative networks?
Well, unfortunately, you're probably right. And that's probably exactly what's going to happen, as it has with many different things right now. And that's the hyper-partisan environment that we're in right now, an environment that I don't necessarily believe in. You know me, I'm all about unity. I'm all about peace. My tagline is not black, not white American. In fact, after Charlie Kirk's death, I put a very unifying message up on my social medias asking people to tamp down everything they're talking about. Because on one hand, you have, Democrats, saying that it's the Jews that did this to him. On the other hand, you have the conservatives saying that it's Muslims that did this to him. And I just asked everybody to just tamp down the rhetoric and let the cops and the police and our law enforcement do their job. But unfortunately, yes, you're probably right. We're in a hype.
Don't go anywhere. We got to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we have with us none other than Darius Mayfield, who is a candidate for Congress. And we're getting ready to break down some serious things, talking about human trafficking, which is a big thing for me. We're getting ready to talk about. Don't go anywhere. You are watching Americana. All right, hello out there in social media world. Thank you for staying with us through this commercial break. What I want you to do is to remember to tune in to us Monday through Friday at 6:30 p.m. This is definitely a place you want to tune in to get all the latest exposure, as I like to say, of all the things that's going on. But if you have any questions, comments, or even concerns, I want to hear from you. So drop some things in the comments. Tell us what you think about all the stuff that's going on out in the world, our country, in your backyard. Does it matter to you? What are you going to do? And how are we going to do it differently? We have an opportunity as citizens. So let's get back to the show. All right, everybody, welcome back. from commercial break. We are getting ready to dive into a topic that is very, very important to me. I am concerned about the human trafficking numbers, and I feel like often people do not talk about it enough. But in 2025, this year here, the Trump administration cut $500 million in anti-trafficking grants, and the State Department's TIP office staff shrank by over 60%. Mr. Mayfield, this is a big concern for me because I see the absolute numbers rising, but why for a organization, an administration, a party to be a party of law and order, why, and family values, why in God's name have we cut funding to help protect and save the lives of the innocent?
Yeah, well, I'll definitely mention two things for the audience, which is, one, it was the Biden administration that removed, sex trafficking of children from their areas of concern, quote unquote, areas of concern. They did that very early in his administration. They are also the same administration that lost track of over 300,000 migrant children because of the border crisis that we had when he was in office. A lot of what you see right now is a direct result of some of the successes that the Trump administration was able to immediately have. Right now, we're at net zero border crossings. And as we all know, the majority of the sex trafficking, the majority of the human trafficking in this country came from our southern border, which is all but pretty much been wrapped up at this point. And you're absolutely right. This is a very important issue to me. I work with a group called Beyond Trafficking. Stephanie is a very good friend of me and my wife. I've been to the border 4 or 5 times. I've actually been there with you. So this is a very, very important issue to me. But I do want to tamp down, some of the rhetoric from, the left, which is trying to espouse and put all this blame on the Trump administration when it's actually the Trump administration that actually took this seriously and did something on the border to make sure we were able to immediately cut down on a lot of the sex trafficking and where it was coming from, which was from the southern border, from South America, from the cartels. And again, and anybody can go back and check this, it was the Biden administration that actually deemed this not an area of concern when they first came in, hence why we had so much sex trafficking and so much human trafficking during their administration.
So what, but I go back to the $500 million. That was my concern, because although we do, and we know the Biden administration was absolutely garbage, but when we come into 2025, into this current administration, and we're seeing that 61% of the workers are now, they're shrinking, and then we have, $500 million of grants that are now just not there to help in these areas. That's the problem for me. And I understand this is not about, blaming administration per se, as much as is like there's a problem, because we have to be solutionaries. We can't just, to me, it's not about red or, and as you said, black or white is American, but it also can't be blue or red. It has to make sense. And at the end of the day, whether it's at the border and places like the state of Florida, where it ranks number 3 for human trafficking, those are alarming numbers. And so it goes back to why $500 million in grants to anti-human trafficking when we're supposed to be family values. And I asked someone this question off record, and you may not agree. They said, well, because they're cutting the funds because they're the ones that's doing the trafficking. So do you think that this is why we're seeing that? What's happening?
No, I think this administration is scaling down a lot of things. And the reason why they're scaling down a lot of things is because our priorities have changed. The American people voted for specific things like lower taxes, things like protecting our border, making sure we deport the illegal aliens that are here that are especially violent and have records. And again, I think they're able to actually take away some of this money and actually tamp down some of this money in this case because they've done such an effective job in closing down our border and making sure, they get to the root of the problem. And a lot of these things aren't happening. I understand that numbers are going up right now, but I would dare to say that over the next few months, over this next year, now that they've actually resolved that problem in a lot of ways, you're going to see those numbers go down. Now, I understand a lot of people are hurting. Listen, I live in Virginia. I'm running in Virginia, where a lot of federal employees have been let go from their jobs. A lot of things are being reprioritized because that's what the American people voted for. Fortunately, in the case of human trafficking, one of the things they voted for was protecting that border in order to make sure we hit the root of the problem so these things didn't persist. So I think over time, very recent time, very soon from now, you are going to see a lot of those numbers slow down, go down because of the effective job that they've done on the border. But my heart does go out to, those federal workers that have lost their jobs. My heart does go out to people that are unfortunately losing certain things because certain things are being slashed. But again, it's a reprioritization of this country, of our finances. And again, a lot of things work hand in hand. Even when we talk about those federal jobs that are being lost, some of those people are being moved to other departments, and they're consolidating things to make sure we can still effectively take care of all these issues. Well, let me go there,
because Consolidate, this is the thing. So, is it really about fiscal responsibility, or are we weakening our ability? Because human trafficking is slavery. That's what it is. It's exploiting. It's girls. It's boys. All of this is happening. We know this is not about the movie Taken. So no, everybody's not getting whisked away in the back of a van and been taken on the island. Like, this is happening in people's backyard. But that concerns to me as we're having this conversation, because I really want to get to it. Even though they're consolidating, why take away from because even though we're having the border crisis that's being worked on, illegals are still out there, even though they're trying to wrangle them up together, but we're still having that problem. They're still here in the United States. They're still having ICE to go get them. It hasn't been solved, but at the end of the day, we still have this problem. So why shrink down something that we need to fight against, and why call it fiscal responsibility when we're sitting here seeing the numbers continue to climb? About 45 seconds. What do you think about that?
Well, it's fiscal responsibility because, we are cutting some of the fat in our agencies. But again, some of these people are being moved to other agencies like the ATF, like the FBI, that can actually still handle these problems, and in a lot of ways handle them in more effective ways. We've seen with different groups that have been shut down, that, they weren't always doing the right thing. Money wasn't always going to the right place. A lot of these organizations outside the government have been corrupted in a lot of ways that we traditionally thought were, doing some great things. So I think people being moved to other departments, other organizations, again, like the FBI, the ATF, CIA, wherever it is, they're still able to tackle these problems in an effective way, and a lot of times in a better way, and we're making things more effective while being fiscally responsible.
All right. Well, thank you. But don't go anywhere. We're coming right back. Yeah. We're getting ready to take a quick commercial break. But when we get back, we're getting ready to talk about this AI regulation. Senator Ted Cruz has some words to say, but don't go anywhere. You are watching Americana. All right, everyone, thank you again for staying with us. Those out there in social media world, well, we have a very special guest with us today, Darius Mayfield. So make sure that you follow him, make sure you follow me, and make sure you follow AFRO. We're here every day, Monday through Friday at 6:30 p.m. But this is the thing. We just discussed human trafficking. I want you to drop in the comments, and do you think, some people don't think it's real. Do you think it's real? What should we do? Should we have literally cut funding for human trafficking, or should we be out there fighting every single day? That's a question I want you to ask. And then you can ask us. Let's have that conversation. But we're getting ready to get back to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in and being with us and staying live on social media. You are tuned into Americana. All right, well, welcome back, you guys. We are definitely here at Americana, but we're getting ready to get into something. Nearly 700 AI bills were introduced to the U.S. state legislature in 2025. 700. While Senator Ted Cruz pushed for a 10-year ban on states regulating AI. Now, Darius, this is the question. Why is it seeming from D.C. to other places that with this, that there is a federal overreach. We're seeing a lot of that. And I believe that we got to ask that question, because as Republicans, it's supposed to be let federal do federal, let state do state, let local do local. Why is it, and ultimately you guys out there to know, it was voted down, but why even make this type of proposal knowing that it will be labeled as federal overreach?
Well, you know, some people are going to take their shots. And that's part of the reason why I'm running for Congress. You know, at the end of the day, the most important thing here is to protect people's freedom and their privacy. That's all we want to make sure of. And that needs to be the #1 objective when it comes to AI, because as we know, AI moves a lot faster than our government. So we want to make sure, you know, these companies don't get caught up in a bunch of bureaucracy and red tape, because as we know, that stifles development. And that means jobs will start going overseas, and we will lose out on the opportunity to be the leader in AI, which we absolutely need to. I think that's probably one of the most important challenges that we face right now, because if we let another country like a Russia or a China get in front of us when it comes to our ability to produce AI and quickly adapt to today's technologies, we're all but done as a country. So as long as we're protecting people's freedom and their privacy, I think that needs to be #1. But like you, I do believe in a smaller federal government. I do believe in leaving a lot of the power to the states, and our elected officials need to remember that when they're, you know, thinking about this and trying to pass bills. And that's why people like you and myself ran, so we can make sure we have people that represent our ideals, which are the ideals of probably 80–90% of the country at the end of the day.
Now, I don't want to put you too much on the spot, but should this had actually went through, would it had indeed been overreach? Because we defend states' rights, but while supporting a federal ban, indeed it would have been some form of a overreach from the federal government. Do you agree with that?
Do I agree with the federal overreach? I never agree with federal overreach. So no, we definitely need that. We need to be smart, because we want to protect people's identities. We want to protect their privacy and their freedom at the end of the day. So it is going to be important, I'm sure, on some level for the federal government to provide even the states with some type of foundation to make sure they're going about this the right way. And I do think the federal government should be involved in helping the states and making sure we protect everybody on that note. But you know, at the end of the day, I believe in less bureaucracy, not more red tape, and we need to make sure we don't overdo it with this, because if we do, we will stifle our growth in this sector, not increase it.
Well, real quick, so should conservatives actually push AI innovation, or are we getting a little nervous and shaken because we think it's going to run something over? Because, you know, AI get, you know, out there and do, and as you mentioned, AI is moving faster than these politicians. So do you indeed think that that's what the problem is? They're thinking they're having to get ahead of and regulate it, or do you think it's something that can be regulated? I'll give you about 45 seconds with this, because it's going to happen. AI is here. There's nothing we can do.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think especially when it comes to America, we should definitely have a little bit of pause when it comes to AI. We see what happens in places like China, where they have an entire AI caste system created there, where they rate their citizens. We don't want something like that here in the United States of America. But we also have to be fair and intelligent in our assessment of what we're doing with this, because we need this technology in order for us to continue to be the superpower that we are in the future. So I think it's a little bit of both, and we need to be very smart how we move forward. And that's why we need to elect the right people, so people can look at it in those nuanced ways.
Elect the right people like you. All right, so thank you. Thank you, Darius, for being here. You guys make sure that you follow him, and if you're in Virginia, you already know what to do. So that's all I'm going to say. That's a wrap for today's episode of Americana. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place, and you are only here on AFRO TV. Until then, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep showing up. God bless you.